As many of you know, UiPath is just went public, is really the leading player in automation, which is so critical in customer service. And what they're doing, and they'll tell you more about their software robots, is helping your organization succeed. It's challenging dealing with first-line tech support, immediate customer interaction, and they have great tools to make that customer experience so much more positive while still leveraging and optimizing your cost. So Brad, all yours, and let me know when I need to take over and play that video.
Will do. Thanks, Ron. Great to be here. Thanks for having us. And yeah, excited to talk about the omnichannel experience and really the role of RPA in that. A quick overview of the agenda for today. So we've already done the introductions. I don't like to assume that everybody knows RPA and knows UiPath, so we'll do a brief overview of RPA and just talk a little bit about UiPath and our automation platform. From there, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk a little bit about how we see the orchestration of the customer journey and how automation applies to that. And then answering at the end, one of the big questions that I often get is, hey, Brad, this all sounds great, but how do we actually get started? So I'll give you a quick high-level view of some of the typical automation opportunities that we see in retail. And Ron, I know you mentioned at the beginning of the call when we were doing the introductions, there's some folks outside of retail, and I would reiterate the same points Ron made, that a lot of these concepts, ideas, and other areas that we're going to cover apply not just to retail, but apply to other industries too that are working with and speaking with customers. So with that, let's start off with a quick overview of the of UiPath and really starting off talking about RPA. At the end of the day, RPA, you can really think of it as anything a person does with a keyboard, their mouse. Oftentimes what we can do is help automate that. And the way we help automate that is by, one, our robots can actually see. They can see what's on the screen, whether it's one or more applications, oftentimes many applications in a contact center setting that a person may need to interact with. So once we can see and we can work with and we can tell what those text boxes are and all the different elements on the screen, well, then we can have our robots think so they can decide what to do. And then finally, those robots can actually start to actually do. So automating those tasks again across multiple applications. But we're talking about robots, but we really think of robots in two forms. So one is unattended. In a nutshell, unattended robots are robots that run on their own. They don't require a person. Then there are attended robots that actually sit beside, for today's conversation, will oftentimes be a contact center agent, or it might be someone in the back office that's helping a contact center agent with a task. This is really the beginning of having an automation platform for the enterprise, because we feel like those robots, to be able to help support those robots, you need a way to be able to discover automation opportunities. You need to have a way to be able to build them, whether you're a developer with coding skills or someone without coding skills. You need to be able to manage and govern those robots too. And then finally, what are some of the different ways you can engage or interact with your robots? And this is where we feel like our platform is just a little bit different. And to give you some use cases around Discover, some ideas around how we can help Discover from a customer experience perspective. Think about how much time you may spend today doing time and motion studies. So studies of how a contact center agent is working. How much time are you spending today on things like updating training manuals or standard operating procedure documents? Would you like to know more about how your customers interact with you through a journey? So starting maybe on your website, maybe that website turns into an email turns into a phone call. Customers may not take the same journey. So would you like to be able to analyze all the different log files you have to be able to map out the different journeys your customers are taking? Those are some ideas of what we're really talking about, how our tools apply in customer experience to discovery. So discovering where automation opportunities may reside. I talked earlier about having tools for developers and non-developers alike, but I think one of the best kept secrets inside of UiPath is really this ability to not have to start from scratch. We have a library, a marketplace of pre-built integrations. And we're talking about Amazon today. I'm going to talk more about some of the work we do with Amazon, but this is just a quick example of just a few of the thousands of different integrations that are available on the UiPath marketplace. Again, designed to make it easier and faster for you to be able to get your automations up and running. And a lot of those apply to customer experience and contact center. Finally, managing and then engage. We're going to focus a little bit more on the engage part as we get into the conversation today. All right, so that's the platform. That's the platform overview. Now, how does that apply to retail? What are some of the good use cases that are here? And these are just a few of the use cases that we oftentimes find in retail, helping to monitor inventory levels, pricing, helping to adjust pricing. When we look at returns, warranties, complaints, refunds, et cetera, those are oftentimes good opportunities for automation in retail. Reducing errors and improving efficiency. If you think about, a robot doesn't have problems with fat king words. We all have that problem, right? Better in-store planning. The second one from the bottom is actually, for one on here that we're going to focus more on today, is the second one from the bottom, which is how do we help agents, how do we help employees, and also how do we improve customer satisfaction? So that's something that we feel is invariably linked, employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction. Now, what I didn't talk a lot about there was the value. So what kind of benefits are our customers getting? And there's a key reason for that. It's because we could spend an entire webinar just talking about that. But if you're interested in learning more about RPA and the value it brings to retail, an absolute masterclass of a webinar we recently published with Home Depot. I would recommend checking it out. We'll share this information later on, but if you just go to our YouTube channel, it'll be right there at the top, or if you search YouTube for Home Depot and UiPath, you'll find it there. Again, we'll share the link for anyone interested after the webinar today. All right, so that's a little bit about RPA. That's a little bit about the platform. Really, the focus of today's conversation is about how we can apply automation to customer experience and to the omni-channel experience for retail. So let's talk a little bit more about that. And the other part here that I'm going to talk about is, we have a deep partnership with Amazon around AWS in terms of how we can leverage some of the different tools. So what I'm going to do is actually, when I talk about the retail customer journey and some of the opportunities there for automation, I'll talk about some of the tools that we use together with Amazon, or how you can use some of the tools from Amazon together with UiPath and RPA products. And it really starts off with self-service. So these may be customers calling in through Amazon Connect, maybe through chatbots and other your mobile web application or your website, any self-service channel, right? So there are opportunities to automate simple tasks like password resets, customers just wanting to know location of a store, order status, payment status, make a payment. The list goes on and on. I'm actually going to cover some more of those later on. But these are all around helping to increase call deflection, self-service adoption, maybe sometimes called self-service containment, and other metrics there. And this is a win-win, one of those rare win-wins where there's a lot of research out there now that shows that when you provide more self-service options, customers are happier, and you can oftentimes do that at a low cost. A recent example here is Fiserv, where they're processing 10,000 card replacement requests per day using a combination of a phone system, an IVR, and the UiPath robot. They might be asking, why are you talking about Fiserv on a retail call? Because I know a lot of retailers have your own affinity cards, loyalty cards, and maybe similar offerings. So I thought this might be a good one to talk about today, because I'm guessing card type requests, interactions are a high volume driver in your contact centers. Let's move on here and talk a little bit about how we can help the agent. So we're starting off in self-service, and then we've got the agent, right? So we have tools that can help provide a single view of the customer. You've got the attended robot that's, I like to think of it as the buddy that's there for the agent, helping them do common tasks like copy and paste, but maybe also giving them some intelligence on what to do, the next best action to take, and all sorts of other things. You can see a few of the metrics there that we impact, but the case study that I really want to talk about here is a recent top 25 North American retailer that used our low-code tools to build that single view, that single pane of glass of the customer. And after they did the pilot, they reported back that they were saving about 50% on their average handling time, along with an array of other benefits there too. Now, the last part here that I'm going to talk about is handoff. So any handoff from agent to agent, agent to back office, if you think about it, those handoffs could probably be automated in a lot of cases. And it may not be automating the entire handoff or the entire process, but we can help bring a human into the loop to help finish it off if it's not something that's 100% automatable. a good example of this, and this is one of my, not just my favorite retail case study, but one of my favorite case studies of overall. I was with a top 5 global retailer that reported back to us that since they've started using UiPath and automation, or RPA, not just in contact center, but really across the enterprise, they've saved over 1 million hours. Now, 1 million, I thought, that's maybe hard for some folks to relate to, so I started doing a little bit of math. I hope my math is right, but that, to put that in context, that's about 100 years, over 100 years of savings in terms of work hours that folks are now able to go and do other things that may be more valuable to this particular company. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this in terms of a journey. So we've got John. I know a lot of retailers today sell extended warranties for their product, or enhanced warranties, or warranties that go beyond the manufacturer's warranty. John's calling in. He's calling into our fictitious UI retailing company, and he wants to know more about his warranty. But he's getting a little bit frustrated because the option isn't actually available in the IVR. So he does what a lot of us do, just start pressing 0, right? Well, John gets through to our agent, Laura, and Laura starts pulling up John's details. She puts him on hold while she's trying to get into a mainframe application and CRM application and pull up the warranty documents, etc. John, you can see he's getting a little frustrated. He's been on hold for a while Laura's pouring all these details up. And instead of Laura proactively telling John, hey, I see you've got a warranty about to expire, John kind of highlights that and asks, can I extend that warranty? Laura isn't sure, says she'll have to put him on hold again to try to find someone to help. And John at this point is very frustrated and just wants to move on. So let's take a quick look at what this looks like in the unautomated, before UiPath world. So we've got John calling in. Laura takes John's call. She tries to get into log the details in her application. She's trying to log into the mainframe at the same time. We talked about fat fingering. She might have fat fingered her username or password there. Happens a lot. And then also trying to pull up the warranty details for John. So trying to find the right place with all the warranty information. And this is going fast, but if you sat beside a contact center agent, this is kind of how they work. They're going through those screens and all the different work they're doing pretty quickly. So now let's take a look at what that journey, so that was before UiPath. Let's take a look at what that journey looks like after UiPath. And we're going to combine this together with some Amazon services and Amazon Connect here. So instead of, John's going to call the number just like he did before. And instead of not being able to listen to his information in the IVR, Amazon Connect and a UiPath robot are actually going to work together to take that data from the mainframe and read it aloud to John in the IVR. So that way, when he connects to Laura to ask about extending his warranty, Laura doesn't have to do anything that we just saw. She's talking to John for the first 10, 15, maybe 30 seconds of the call because there's a UiPath robot running in the background that's gathering all the details and the data. Laura proactively was going to, instead of reactively asking John before, she's actually going to proactively ask him, hey, would you like to extend your warranty? I see you've got one expiring soon. John says, yeah, that's actually what I thought might be happening, and would like to extend that. So, and the last part that I was going to talk about, just as we're wrapping things up here, was just how do you get started? How do you get started with automation? And there are a number of actual use cases and opportunities in retail, and we like to use these heat maps to highlight them. It doesn't mean that the actually, let me take a step back. The darker shaded red opportunities tend to be good ones. They tend to be the low-hanging fruit. Now you see some that are lighter shaded. It doesn't mean that those aren't good automation opportunities. They actually are automation opportunities, but sometimes might not have the same value that you see as some of the others, the quick win, so to say. And this follows pretty closely along with the journey that we were looking at earlier in the session, where you have self-service opportunities across a number of different channels. I often get asked about fax and email. I talk to customers every day that still use fax and mail. Most of the time, what happens is when it's faxed in, it actually comes across as an email to someone in a queue. Well, that's something that's pretty easy for a robot to actually help automate. One of the other questions that I often get, especially from retail customers, is, hey, you can help us with our social channels? Absolutely. We can have a robot that's connected into your Facebook Messenger, your Twitter direct messages, et cetera. And if you think about it like a chatbot, we can detect that there are intents, what those intents are, and then go ahead and if the robot can do the processing, that's okay. If not, we can help transfer that to an agent. And here are just some examples of automation opportunities that we tend to see in the self-service space for retail, self-service area. And then on the assisted side, this is where you have an agent. We tend to see good opportunities around starting a phone call, kind of like what you saw in the video, sales and marketing, inquiry, order status, sometimes new store openings, service, what if a customer changes address, loyalty management, other opportunities that are there too. And then on the workforce management side, agent onboarding and offboarding is one that comes up quite often, especially now with a lot of contact centers, a lot of organizations that are hiring agents back in. They want to be able to automate that onboarding process as much as possible. So that's something that another use case that we often see in this space. So with that, Ron, I don't know if there are any questions. I haven't had a chance to check the chat session yet.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of them. I might have a question for you. One of the things you mentioned in your comments was all about low and no code. And I think it's an important point maybe you could stress is people want to pursue automation. It really provides a great opportunity, and you don't need to be a hardcore Python or C# programmer. And maybe you could describe the flexibility that UiPath offers, whether or not you want some hardcore customization, they can do that. Or if you are more API oriented, by knowing the application, you could still create the same powerful solution.
Yeah, I think this is one of the keys for being able to become the fully automated enterprise, that you have to have tools, the low-code tools, for folks that are more business savvy, that maybe aren't coders or developers. So we have the Studio X product, UiPath Apps, which is the low-code tool to help create that single view and also engage with a robot. But many organizations are going to have very complex automations that need to be written, and that's where our full Studio product, where you can add your own C# code, the Python code that you mentioned too, to be able to create very rich automations that may require a developer. So we do feel like that's an important balance, to be able to have the tools that are citizen developer focused, and also have the tools that are for developers alike.
Got it. Now, is your platform also compatible with all the social media platforms where you could automatically link with either WhatsApp if you're international, or Twitter or Facebook, to try and not only adapt or react to not just a website inquiry, but to social media feeds in a cost-effective and customer-savvy way?
Yeah, and without getting into too much of the technical details, we can integrate with just about any of the social media platforms that are out there today, whether it is through an API, whether it is through integrations from our marketplace that we were just highlighted earlier. And sometimes we have customers that actually use our user interface integration capabilities on top of a social media post feed or messenger. So there are multiple ways to integrate, and that makes it possible for us to really integrate with just about any social media tool out there.
Got it. And one final comment. I know that there are lots of standalone tools like this that people use, especially in large organizations, automation tools for customer-facing apps, for employee-facing apps. They may have a help desk ticket application. They may have an onboarding new employee system. They have another phone system. Are you finding some interest in, or more interest recently in UiPath, because an organization can learn one platform and have it be deployed throughout the organization, as opposed to a lot of standalone platforms that each try and do what UiPath does from a centralized viewpoint?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think one of the cases, traditionally RPA has been thought of as a user interface integration tool, but something that I see more and more often with customers is that they may have an API from Salesforce.com, an API from ServiceNow, other APIs that they built with their own messaging buses, et cetera. And then they may just have mainframe green screens and other systems that have no API. So instead of having developers have to go through and learn all those different APIs, you can actually use a UiPath connector on top of those systems. And there are a variety, not just the ones that I mentioned. There are dozens and dozens of connectors, and then also bring those together into workflows for systems that don't have an API. So that helps speed the development for those systems that have an API or not an API